When that door closed, Shawn, it was like a shotgun going off in my face. What's the matter with you, Mr. Stephan? Don't you get it? What you see is what you've got, and you're not going to change this, and it's an intractable disorder, and you're not going to reverse this. That's all there is to it. And Mr. Stephan, I don't mean to say this to you, but I have to. You need to understand. You better prepare for another suicide.
Hello and welcome to Truehope Cast, the official podcast of Truehope Canada. Today's episode is not just another conversation, it's a warning and a rallying cry. Right now, Health Canada is quietly pushing forward a plan called the Self-Care Framework, a policy that, once fully implemented, will strip Canadians of access to most of their natural health products. Products that have saved lives, restored families, and given hope where pharmaceuticals have failed. But the people are fighting back. The NHPPA, led by constitutional lawyer Shawn Buckley, is driving across the country on the Health Charter Tour, uniting Canadians, gathering signatures, and hand-delivering the Charter of Health Freedom to Ottawa. This isn't just a campaign, it's a nationwide stand against government overreach and awakening to protect our right to choose natural health. Joining Shawn on today's special podcast episode is a man whose story began with tragedy and turned into one of the most important health revolutions in modern history. Anthony Stephan, founder of Truehope and creator of Empower Plus. Together they have faced regulators, skeptics, and impossible odds, and they're here to tell you why this moment matters more than ever. Be sure to check out www.nhppa.org to catch the event live. This is Truehope Cast. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the world's greatest health show. My name is Shawn Buckley with the Natural Health Product Protection Association, and I'm very pleased to have Tony Stephan with me. I've known Tony. It's been decades that I've known you. I had to go back and check my records to even figure out when your trial was, and you have one of the most compelling personal stories I've ever run across. And so can you, maybe let's just start with your wife, Debbie, and kind of what went there and what you were up to at the time?
Well, first off, thanks, Shawn, for having me on today. It's wonderful. And I appreciate what you're doing. It's so important. This is so critical to all of us. It really is. So thank you very much for what you're doing. My name is Anthony Stephan. Sadly, our story begins in a very traumatic way in 1994 with the loss of my first wife. She ended up taking her life. She was diagnosed with bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling. And at that time, of course, we were told this is an incurable disease that she was struggling with. The only thing that was available are medications for sedation. And sadly, it didn't work. And she ended up losing her life in January of 1994. And, you know, Shawn, that was just the most traumatic time in our life. We have a large family together, and at the time of her death, 2 of her children, our children.
And Tony, I'll just back up. How many kids were there at the time?
At the time of her death, there were 9 children. 9 children, natural, and 1 adopted child. And so there's a total of 10. At the time of her death, there was 8 at home, and when you say death, I mean Debbie committed suicide. She did, and it's the most traumatizing thing that a family can go through. Every one of us. I used to listen to after her demise. I used to listen at night and hear my children crying and weeping, and just the trauma was so overwhelming. I mean, we're in a terrible, terrible place as a family. And the numbers aren't good when you look back at how many families can actually stay glued together and come through such an issue.
So can I just back you up? She was put on some of it, and I'll say, the approved Health Canada medications, right?
She was taking Prozac at the time of her death. She had been taking it for about 2 weeks. And when she got onto Prozac, she absolutely lost it. She absolutely went hysterical. There was no sense at all. And I need to put a caveat in here. Individuals that suffer with these mental conditions do not bring this upon themselves. They're the victim. They're the victim in this issue. And she was a victim. And we ended up being the victims because the children lost their mom. I lost my wife, who I'm deeply in love with. And all of your dreams are shattered. Everything. Prozac was not a good thing at all. And I'm not going to criticize the doctor that prescribed her with Prozac, but it's not the answer at all. I mean, she lost her life basically, yes, to bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling, but it was the Prozac that pushed her over the edge.
And am I correct? It ran in her family, bipolar disorder.
It does continue. I still track the family and visit with some of the members of that family. It's a huge issue. Her father took his life 16 years before she did. And there have been multiple suicides in that family. It flows downhill. It's a genetic issue. It's a weakness. And once again, I'm going to say, it's not the individual's fault. And it left me running. It absolutely left me running because I've got these other 2 children at home with the other 6, but these 2 children are diagnosed with the same disorder as their mom was. Bipolar affective disorder 1 with rapid cycling. If you look it up, it says it's incurable. And they were out of control. With all this trauma heaped on top, it was a terrifying situation.
Right. So do you want to, one of them was Joseph, and I think he was around 15 at the time, right?
Yep. He was 15 years old. He was 240 pounds of fury. He really was. He played some amateur football, but he couldn't stay tuned in because of the flightiness that the disorder brought to him. And he ended up at the age of 15 with a federal weapons charge. He says he was everything that a schoolyard shooting was all about. Out of control, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And my daughter, Autumn.
Can we just back up to Joseph for a minute? So
sure you
my
can.
understanding is Joseph was being treated with lithium by his doctor.
Yeah, around 1,250 milligrams of lithium per day.
Right. And lithium was at the time the mainstream treatment for bipolar disorder.
Yes, but of course it's recognized that eventually you have to get off of it because of hepatic and renal issues, liver and kidney issues, because it does attack the organs.
And it didn't work for Joseph. Like my understanding is like he would have panic attacks, delusions, he would rage, and that basically the entire family was afraid to be in the house with him.
Oh, absolutely. I remarried Shawn about 8 months after Debbie's death. That was a godsend. And I mean that literally. I'm not speaking in vanity at all. We were blessed to have Barbara come and be a part of our family, but it was terrifying. It was terrifying for her. It was terrifying for me. All the children were afraid. When Barb moved in with us after I married her, Joseph's bed was on the second floor, his bedroom. And I'll tell you what, if we heard there was a creaking sound like he's getting out of bed in the middle of the night, we were up like a shotgun. Had to be, because we were afraid. We were afraid that he was going to mortally injure the other children or us. That's how out of control he was, in spite of the lithium.
Right. So the whole family's basically on pins and needles, worried that Joseph's going to cause harm, like literally kill people.
Yes.
Okay. And then
he often threatened to do so. But I'm going to throw the caveat in again here. That's not Joseph. That's not the little boy that shared and cared. Such a loving son, really. And as he's growing up, he's just a wonder boy. I remember how he shared with his brothers and sisters, and they would play together. And when he hit puberty, he was off like a shot. Boom. So there's a hormonal relationship somewhere in the background there as well, no question, with these individuals.
And at the time, can you tell us what's happening with your daughter, Autumn?
Well, Autumn's in and out of the psych ward like her second home. And she had gotten to the point that her doctor says, if you come back here again, I'm going to have to certify you for institutionalization. And the chances of getting out of that are a rare experience. But she was in a terrible place as well. Dana, her husband, was having to look after her full time. He's trying to work to put food and clothing.
Let's just back up again. I just want people to understand. Like, so Autumn is being involuntarily committed to psych wards.
Yeah, absolutely. And the psych ward was her second home. That was her second home.
She would be mania and depression. She's doing the cycle. She would have, my understanding is, basically hallucinations.
Yes.
She'd hear things and see things. She thought her husband and family members were trying to kill her, and so she'd act violently. Like, she is completely, I guess, like, it's suffering as much as a person could suffer. And then she's, when you're, and I know this from interviewing her, I called her as a witness, and you saw that. So in a way, this interview is us reminiscing, because I'm going to ask you about some of the things that happened during the trial and what your thoughts were,
Sure.
when we get there. But I remember when I was interviewing her, like, she basically, what would happen to these people is, you have these episodes, you're suicidal, you're manic, you get involuntarily committed, and they basically so dope you out on these drug cocktails that you can't function. Like, you're drooling over yourself, but once your body gets used to the drugs enough that you're not drooling over yourself 24 hours a day, they send you home on 24-hour suicide watch.
Yes.
And that's where Autumn is, like when you're saying her husband, Dana. But I need you to back up. So Autumn's in crisis, Joseph's in crisis. The doctors are telling you there's no solution.
Well, let me go back a foot and a half, even before there, to let you know what happened to us that instigated the major change. I'm going to say catharsis, but there was a step in there. Barbara realized, and she came to me and she said, I can't do this. There's no way that we're going to hold this family together with the situation that we have. We're not going to make it, Tony. And so I am going to look for some help here. And I don't know how she did it. I'm too busy with my head under the hood, just trying to keep things at a somewhat quasi level keel here, right? But she starts digging in at the University of Calgary, and she gets us lined up with a top psychiatrist, one of Western Canada's well-known psychiatrists. Wonderful lady. She is. She's a wonderful lady. Took us about 3 months to get there, and we're all in hell, literally, trying to get there. Hopefully this woman has an answer for us, right? And so on the appointed day, we drove up to Calgary to the U of C, the psychiatric extension there, and we're going to have an interview with this lady. And we're in the waiting room, and she invites us in. Joseph, right? Yes. Anthony, yes. Barbara, the stepmom, yeah. Come on into my office. And we're in there, and she says, "What are you seeing, Mr. Stephan?" And I said, "This is terrifying. It's absolutely hopeless the way that it is right now." And I said to her, "There has to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. My daughter's on 5 different medications, in and out of the psych ward like her second home. Joseph has a weapons charge. He's extremely violent, raging between severe depression and severe euphoria, delusional states, psychotic states, and he's on 1250 milligrams of lithium a day, and it's not working. There must be a better answer. With all of the billions and billions of dollars in the pharmaceutical industry and the research that's taking place, there isn't a better answer than this?" And she said, "Well, not really. We're going to have to find a better cocktail of medications and sedate him with stronger meds." And I said, "What? There's got to be something better than this." And she said, "You know what? You're not getting it." And I was very emphatic. I mean, I guess I'm very emotional. I'm on the edge, literally, and so is my wife and the whole family. And she said, "You're not getting this at all. Mrs. Stephan, would you take Joseph and please go out in the waiting room? I need to talk to your husband alone." When that door closed, Shawn, it was like a shotgun going off in my face. "What's the matter with you, Mr. Stephan? Don't you get it? What you see is what you've got, and you're not going to change this, and it's an intractable disorder, and you're not going to reverse this. That's all there is to it. And Mr. Stephan, I don't mean to say this to you, but I have to. You need to understand. You better prepare for another suicide, because you've got a propensity in your family to suicide vis-a-vis your wife suiciding and Joseph's grandfather." And you know, Shawn, when she said that to me, it was like somebody opened up the hope valve and everything drained out of me. And I wasn't mad at her. She was trying to do her best. She's a good person. And I stood up and I said, "Hey, I appreciate your time." And I walked out. And I said to Barb and Joe, "We're going home." That ride home was the longest ride I've ever taken in my life, because I didn't have any hope. There was nothing left in me. And I told Barbara what happened, and there was nothing left in her. And my prayer was somehow that God would help us to stay glued together through this, and that he would bring an answer.
And he did.
He did.
And the story is interesting how this came about. So he wasn't finished with you or your family.
Not at all.
Can you share with us how kind of the idea of a different way came about?
Well, you know, when I realized that there's no hope in the medications, I started praying and pleading and fasting and searching. And I took a position working for a church where I had all these buildings. And one of their liaison kind of directors was a guy named David Hardy. And David and I got to know each other because we would be walking through these buildings, looking at them, analyzing this and that, and carpet repair and replacement and painting and refurnishing or whatever. And I told him about what was happening with my family. And just out of the blue, he said, I got to tell you, Tony, I don't know anything about mental illness. Never had a problem. My family's okay. My wife is okay. My lineage is okay. My children are okay. So I don't understand what you're going through. But I will tell you one thing. He said, I used to put together nutrient-based products in the agricultural industry. And he said, we used to see a thing called among the hog barns. Sorry. Among the hog barns, we saw this thing called ear and tail biting syndrome. And what happens is the animals literally become so extremely violent. They're all kind of caged in there, and they will attack one another, tear off an ear, tear off a tail. They'll gore each other or whatever they do, these massive big hogs. And he said, we learned very quickly that you could arrest this syndrome, this ear and tail biting syndrome, by applying calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, zinc, nutrients. And we would do this.
Into their food.
Yeah. And we would see calm hogs. You have to forgive me. I picked up a little cold here. But when he told me that, it was like an epiphany. It was like something saying, listen up. You got to do this. You got to do this. And I heard those words. It just vibrated through me. And that was the beginning of the correction that was going to come. The beginning of the blessing that God was about to give to us.
So as I understand it, so you're sharing the problems with your family, and David Hardy says, I don't know anything about humans, but when we see this aggressive behavior in pigs, because he's referencing Joseph there, he's like, well, we know it's nutritional, and we solve it with nutrition, and the little light bulbs go off for both of you. I wonder if there's a nutritional basis to mental health problems.
Exactly. And David was driven, and so was I. He had a keen interest in this thing, and he set aside a lot of work to get involved, and so did I. Well, I didn't have much work, and we were both living in poverty. We used to laugh because the wolf was at the door all the time. But we're looking for these answers, and no question, we were led. We were led down that road. There was some inspiration there that did not come from him and did not come from me. And eventually we put together this supplement. It wasn't for sale.
No, can I just back up? Because I've heard the stories. Like, you guys are reading every journal publication, all information you can on what nutrients help mental health. And I heard you guys would argue about, well, we need this, we need that. And you guys kind of come up with, okay, finally we agree on what we need.
Exactly. In fact, I'll tell you how dedicated we were. We ended up going and visiting with a very famous man named Walter Mertz. He was the head of the USDA Human Nutrition Labs. And he'd written a number of volumes about minerals and their effect upon the human's cellular mass. And we got into this book, and we read, and we actually looked him up, and David and I went and spent about 4 days with him. And what we learned was amazing. It's all here. It's all here right now. at that point. I mean, I'm talking here 30 years ago, 29 years ago. It was there then, and it's still here today. But he warned us too. He said, you're not going to get along well out there when you start to talk this way, because there's a jet stream of competition. There's a jet stream of competition out there that doesn't want to hear this. Big dollars.
Meaning doesn't want to hear that nutrition can solve mental health.
Exactly. The mainstream medical system, no condemnation. There's some wonderful people in that system that are dedicated to saving and helping and eliminating suffering. I want us moving along because I want to get to the trial. So what happened? So you guys come up with a list of what you need. What happened next? Well, we started putting it together. And it's not like you cook it up and put it in your bathtub, but we looked for things that were in a chelated format. David understood that. He said, when you chelate it, the body can uptake it better than taking an elemental mineral. Like, for instance, if you want to take calcium, you don't take calcium carbonate. If you're looking at the bottle and it says calcium carbonate, no. It's only 5% bioavailable. It has to be in a chelated form. And so I'll just help the viewer. So a chelated form is, the calcium would be bound to an organic molecule so that the body can absorb it. Otherwise, it just goes through you. So that's what you mean by a chelated form, is the mineral is attached to a chelate that your body can absorb so you can actually use it. Yeah, because you can't eat rocks. Like, we all know that we need iron. They've discovered in ADHD issues with children and adults, when they pull blood drips from them, they say, oh, you're iron deficient, you're iron deficient, you're iron deficient. But you're not going to go get a knife and scrape the iron oxide off your muffler, put that in a capsule and eat it, because it's not going to go anywhere. It must be in a bioavailable format that your body can uptake, and the cellular mass, head to toe, 100 trillion cells in this universe that we're riding around in called our body, it has to be bioavailable. And we knew that. And David had known that before from his work in the agricultural industry. So we gleaned and we gathered and we looked at this, and we got different forms of minerals from different companies, even things that weren't on the shelf. And we put this together. And Joseph says that he was patient 0. And we put him on it.
He was patient 0.
Yep. That's where you start. You start at 0 and you go up from there. If your bank account's empty, you're starting at 0 and you're going up, right? Well, patient 0 in about 30 days looked like a totally different person. It was a godsend. I wept. So did Barbara, because it was just a miracle. Like his principal called us a number of times, what are you doing over there? The kid's not causing fights and battles in the back of the schoolroom anymore. And he's behaving himself. And he's actually being kind to the other students. He lost that warrior type thing, that front to him. Mm-hmm. And it all slowed down, he said. He was able to think, starting to do homework, starting to become productive. It was absolutely amazing. The flip over, he did a backflip. And that principal down there started telling everybody in town about it. My phone rang off the wall. Hi, Mr. Stephan, this is so-and-so. And okay if I talk to you I said, just speak on. You're okay. I don't know you, but, Yeah, I live in your town there, but I heard about what happened to your son. My wife has been depressed for 20 years. She hardly gets out of bed. Do you think that what you did to your son would work for my wife? I said, I don't know. I don't know, but we can try it. And it works, Shawn.
Yeah,
People
so
yeah.
just organically, you and David find yourselves kind of people reaching out for help. But you guys did it in an organized fashion where you basically had people track how they were doing, right?
We had them fill out little forms. Like we pulled down these psychiatric measurement tools like, oh, yeah, you've got one for ADHD. You've got different forms for, bipolar, MDD, major depressive disorder. And we made these little forms, and we'd have these, like the wife would fill it out for her son or her husband. Whoever in the family could help. We got them to help support. And pretty soon we've got some data. And it's impressive. It's impressive. And people are changing. They're all doing the backflip. Nutrition. It had such a profound effect.
And what about Autumn?
Well, Autumn was extremely resistant. There must be resistance. There has to be opposition in all good things. Boy, Dad, you're crazy. What are you doing? You told me you took Joseph off his meds. Well, he had to come off his meds because he couldn't wake up if he was on lithium. Shawn, if we loaded you up with 1,250 milligrams of lithium and you don't have a mental condition, you're going to do a lot of sleeping. And that's what Joe was working with. So, okay, we peeled that back. Here we go. And she said, you're being irresponsible. Well, what happened about a month later, I got a phone call from Dana, her husband. You know Dana. You've interviewed him as well. And Dana said, Dad, I'm in trouble. They're putting me on midnight shift. I've got to bring Autumn down to your house for 7 days. Are you okay? Can you look after her? And I said, sure, bring her down.
Now, just back up. She's on 24-hour suicide watch at the time.
Bingo.
And if I recall correctly, he would go to work and drop her off at his parents', and they're getting exhausted also. So It was also to give everyone a break because she was so... You just get exhausted having to watch this person every minute of every day so she doesn't harm herself.
That's right. And just all of the emotional overflow that comes from the disorders. Combined with 5 medications, she's on Haldol, Rivotril, Epivan, Ativan, and Cogentin. That's strong medication, strong enough to knock down a horse, let alone a young woman. And so she gets dropped off at her door. One of the first things she said, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to do what you did. And I said, fine, I'm not forcing you to do anything. Come in. And I think it was Saturday when he came. Sunday, of course, is the Sabbath, and we're all going to go to church, and we're all sitting in the pews, and she loses it. She literally lost it, Shawn. She started getting revved up and agitated. And I had to say, let's go home right now. So we walked home. And my friend Bill comes over. He's got about 15 years as a psych nurse. And he takes a look at her and he says, Tony, we're taking her to the hospital. And I said, no, we're not. No, we're not. Bill, I'm not doing this anymore. I already lost my first wife. I lost my father-in-law to this stuff. I'm going to put her on these nutrients. And Shawn, I'm not going to tell you that I forced her to do it. It doesn't sound politically correct. I constrained her to do it. That sounds better, doesn't it? And so she started on the nutrients. Do you know 2 days later, it was about 7 a.m. We hear Barb and I are upstairs on the second floor. That's where we're living, and she's in the main floor. And I hear her hollering, Dad, Dad, you got to come down and see me right now. Okay, throw on my house coat. What's wrong, Autumn? I'm so over medicated. And I said, did you take too much of that stuff? She's got it all here on her bureau beside her bed. Did you load up on that stuff? No, I didn't take any more than I had to. I'm supposed to. I'm so foggy I can't even think. And I'm thinking, what the heck's going on? So, this is foolish. But we were being led. We were being led. I took her off 4 of her 5 medications. I don't know why I didn't take her off the last one, the Rivotril. I didn't know anything about these meds. This is a discovery in its birthing.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take her off the Rivotril, not because I was wise or knew anything. Had I done that, she would have gone into withdrawal. She was addicted to it. It's a benzodiazepine. She'd been on it for 3 years. She would have rolled up in a ball. I'm not kidding you. So I'm just going by feelings here. I took her off 4 of the medications, and then I hit her heavier, not megadosing. There's nothing dangerous about her doses. I understand that completely. And
so can I just fill in for the people that are watching is
please.
What they won't know, Tony, is that, you and David end up creating a company called Truehope that would manage people with serious mental illness. And part of that is you guys actually became experts in the psychiatric drugs and experts in withdrawing people from the psychiatric drugs. And when I say that, I mean at the criminal trial, we had Dr. Charles Popper from Harvard University, who's the founding editor of the Journal of Child and Adolescent Psychopharmacology and was his editor for 10 years. He's an expert in psychiatric drugs who basically told the court under oath, no, he and his, Harvard University psychiatric colleagues will phone Truehope for advice on how to get people off of psychiatric drugs. So you guys are the world experts in weaning people off psychiatric drugs. And I'm just going from memory now. Isn't it like the conventional wisdom is you couldn't get somebody off Epival? Did I pick the right one?
Epival, you can do it, but there's some of them like the benzodiazepines, slow go.
There was one that he said you couldn't, like the conventional wisdom was you couldn't ever get off it. But you guys figured out a way to get people off it. And, so like basically you guys became world experts. So we'll just back with Autumn. You're just learning, wait a second, there's something about weaning people off these psychiatric drugs, but somehow you were led to not take her off the one that would have caused a problem.
Yeah, we were led. I have to put my hands up and say, thank you, God, because we didn't know what we're doing. It's a birthing process. That's what we're going through here. And I'll tell you what, Shawn, we saw a miracle because the next day she woke up, maybe 50% of the drugs, half-life or whatever have left her system. She got up and she started looking after herself. Hitherto before, she couldn't even shower herself. She couldn't look after her personal hygiene. Don't take my words wrong. This is what happens. This is how bad we can get in that state. And she's talking and following me around, and she wouldn't talk before. And so on day five, she phones up her husband and says, get down here and get me. I want to go home now. Well, put Tony on the phone. What's happening down there? Dana, she's only on one medication and she's looking really good. He freaked. He freaked right out. Yeah. Can you meet me in Red Deer, Alberta? I said, yeah, I'll drive up right now. I'm taking the day off work. This is an emergency. And I said, okay, I'll meet you there. We figured the clock time out. And so when I pulled up, I said, Autumn, You sit in the car here. I'm going to go visit with your husband. It's up at Gasoline Alley. You know, the big gas exchange area there. And you got so angry. What have you done? I said, listen, don't give me a hard time over it, buddy. You go sit in the car with her. Here, just go in there. Go sit and talk to her. He gets out about, I don't know, half hour, 40 minutes later. He says, I haven't talked to her in years like that. She's making full sense. And she looks good. Her hair is done. She's got makeup on. Looks like a new person. And I said, you know what, man? She's been blessed. You take her home. And so he did. And life changed. 45 days later, she's off of the benzodiazepine, Rivotril. And she's never looked back. It's been a godsend for her.
And that's been decades.
It's been decades.
She's never been back in the psych ward. She's not on no psychiatric drugs.
Yeah, she went in.
She's been able to have more. She's been able to have more children. She couldn't have children on the drug cocktails.
That's right. And she had an ADHD was done all right, because you see, bipolar moms give birth to ADHD children, and ADHD children become bipolar at puberty. That's what the numbers show. And her son was out of control. Well, so he took nutrients and got all balanced out. I'm just gonna move us. So Joseph's gotten well, Autumn's gotten well. You guys are managing a whole bunch of people, and you guys never planned on making a product, as I understand it. Like you're just, can we solve mental illness with, with nutrition? You were forced by circumstances because the products that you had selected, other people's products, weren't consistent. And so people would falter. So you ended up making a product. Can you tell us about the product and the company? And then we're going to get to the initial research. So maybe just take us to the initial research, because you guys are trying to share this with the world. Well, we are. And all of a sudden it got legs and wings of its own, and people phoning. Pretty soon what we're doing is we're just giving away the nutrients. We didn't want to sell this stuff. We didn't want to get into business, but we were forced to do it because of the immensity of this thing. And we're refining the delivery system. It was coarse. When we first started off, Shawn, people had to chew 48 capsules a day.
Oh, I thought it was 32. It was actually 48.
48. And we had these huge, big tub bottles. How do you want that? With gravy or ketchup? I mean, it was like a full meal deal, and it was very onerous, but it worked. And pretty soon, like you say, we're down to 32. And then we're down to 24. And then we're down to 18. And then we're down to 15. Now we're down to 1.
And it's just figuring out how to make it more bioavailable.
That's the key. You know what? God taught us how a tomato works. You go out there and you take a tomato and you plant it in this soil, and there's all these minerals in that soil, and it grows and it chelates the elemental minerals into ionic forms. So that when you take a tomato and you eat that, you can absorb probably 95%. It's got efficacy deluxe. It's made the way that it should be. Mm-hmm. But when you're taking nutrients, you don't get 95% delivery. And we learned how to do this, what that tomato does.
Okay, so I'm just gonna fast forward us, because you've got the product. People are swarming to you, and you're basically, everyone has to participate in this research. Now I want to speed us along to the trial, but the Dr. Brian Cope, can I tell the story? So you guys you guys have the initial. It's just I've interviewed Dr. Kolb as a potential witness at the trial. So he's a neuroscientist. He was at the University of Lethbridge, and Tony and David convince him on the data they've collected that there's something here. And he gets the University of Calgary involved, Dr. Bonnie Kaplan, in creating forms. And this is for basically behavioral problem kids like ADHD kids. And so the parents are filling out these forms while they're on the Empower Plus. And Dr. Kolb told me, so Tony and David, they drop off these forms and he crunches the numbers. And he said the numbers were too good. Like, this is what he's telling me when I'm interviewing him. He says the numbers are too good. So I knew that Tony and David had basically fudged the data. So I go and I interview, I think there were 30 families. He goes and interviews every single family to learn that, no, we filled this in and this is what we saw. So the numbers were so good. He'd never seen anything like it. And then all of a sudden, the Behavioral Research Unit, which is a branch of the Faculty of Medicine at Children's Hospital in Calgary, they see this data and they go, oh my gosh, we have to do some research on this. And so tell us about that initial research that was done at the University of Calgary Faculty of Medicine Behavioral Research Unit.
Well, Bonnie Kaplan, who's extremely well published, I mean, she's a clinical neuropsychologist and was very well known. And she decided, before I get there, she thought this was snake oil until Brian Kolb talked to her. She wouldn't accept it from us. Get out of here. And I said, we're not selling anything. Snake oil. But anyhow, Brian Kolb, like you say, talked to her and she decided to give it a try. And she brought on a small study. It was open, there wasn't a placebo or anything. And she saw amazing results with childhood, temperament issues, this kind of thing. And she started to really get excited, and she brought on a whole host of researchers, well qualified, well named, and they began to do research. And then, do you want me to bring in
let's get there just in a sec, but I just want the audience to understand. So there were 2 case series done by this Behavioral Research Unit at Children's Hospital in Calgary. And basically 8 out of 10 adults with severe bipolar got completely well and off their psychiatric meds in a short period of time. And that was published in the Journal of Psychiatry, which is a blue chip psychiatric research journal. And then the case series on children, and the criteria was, if you were a psychiatrist in the Calgary area and you had a child you just couldn't manage on any drugs, refer them to this study. And 8 out of 10 got perfectly well and off all their psychiatric drugs in a short period of time. And that was published in the Journal of Child and Adolescent Psychopharmacology, another blue chip journal. And she told me, Dr. Kaplan, we just hadn't seen this type of numbers before. So the Faculty of Medicine goes to the Alberta government and says, look at this, this data is unparalleled. Alberta government, you should cough up a large sum of money for a double-blind clinical trial. So we're talking government-funded research run by the Behavioral Research Unit, this is all they do, is they run research. This is their reason to be. So the Alberta government agreed. These results are so outstanding that we need to run a double-blind clinical trial paid for by the taxpayer, run by the Behavioral Research Unit of the Faculty of Medicine at the Children's Hospital in Calgary. And now this trial's running. But the problem is, Tony, Health Canada found out. How did that happen?
Well, we had a wonderful break because Bonnie Kaplan had been interviewed by CTV News when they came out with some preliminary data. And CT National ran a story about the Empower Plus / research that's taking place at the University of Calgary. It was terrific. Till the next morning.
Right. So just so, and I don't have that video, but literally on the national news, CTV national news, as a lead story is about this government-funded research at the University Hospital, Children's Hospital in Calgary, and just how it's showing incredible promise for treating serious mental health conditions like bipolar. So this is national news. But the problem was Health Canada watches the national news. So what happens the day after this? You'd think Health Canada would be doing cartwheels because serious mental illness is so debilitating. And here there's this vitamin and mineral supplement, which through government-funded research is showing incredible promise. So Health Canada must have been calling to say, how can we help?
Well,
they must have been beside themselves with joy.
It was very joyful. Yes. Yeah, I picked up the phone. Good morning. Hi. Is this Mr. Stephan? Yes, it is. Who's speaking? This is so-and-so from Health Canada. Who gave you the authority to speak on CTV national news last night? What? I didn't know you had to have authority to speak. What happened to our charter rights, right? You know, this kind of thing. Well, do you understand, Mr. Stephan, you are in violation of section 3.1 and 3.2? You're going to shut this thing down now. Do you understand? Yeah. That's the attitude. That's exactly the attitude. And we weren't prepared to cave. And it ended up with an attack on the University of Calgary, Dr. Bonnie Kaplan, by Health Canada. It ended up with us having 3 cease and desist orders filed against us, that were provided to us. You're going to shut this thing down.
Can we just back up about, so here we have the Alberta government has stumped up a large sum of money. Like this is 25 years ago. It was like $500,000 or something.
It was quite large.
And the salaries and all of that are already being paid, so that the value here, it was basically you had a team of researchers. This is all they do is run clinical trials. So the Behavioral Research Unit, which is highly trained in running clinical trials, is running a government-funded clinical trial on a vitamin mineral supplement, and basically Health Canada shuts it down. Shuts down an Alberta government-funded clinical trial. There's not safety signals. They basically structured it like as if it was some dangerous chemical drug with psychiatrists on 24-hour call, and they're doing blood work and all of this. It was as safe as can be, and Health Canada shuts it down.
Well, it was approved. It was approved by their IRB. It was approved by the University of Calgary.
Yeah.
They were using proper ethics. It went through the ethics committee. It wasn't just a shot in the dark here. Yeah.
No, that's my point. So we have this government-funded, professionally run clinical trial, and Health Canada shuts it down, and now they want you to shut down.
Exactly.
But you can't. And tell people why you can't.
If I shut it down, my children are going to die. This is necessary. It's necessary for life. And it's not like we were doing it for financial gain. Well, so what? Even if it was. It was all about, to them, competition with the pharmaceutical industry. That's all. That's what this game was all about. It wasn't about whether Canadians were getting better or worse. Had nothing to do with that. It's about the bottom line of pharma. And that may sound kind of conspiratorial, but I'll tell you what, I got my backside kicked enough that I realized what the main game here is.
Can I share a story? Can I share a story? Because I want people to appreciate that. So you guys are running Truehope. At the time, you guys were basically attracting people like Autumn that were in and out of psych wards.
Yes.
Like, you guys were attracting the worst of the worst. I ran the trial. They were charged criminally. And, so I've got names of people that depended on the product. And I start phoning these people and interviewing them. And Tony, when you're a lawyer and you're going to interview a type of witness. So this is, participants that rely on it. I mean, I've got a list of questions. I sit down and think of, well, what do I need to cover so that I have a meaningful interview and can determine whether or not I want them as a witness? Do they have something to bring to the table? And I take that very seriously. And there's a question that it didn't even dawn on me to ask, but 100% of the participants, 100% of the people that were relying on eMpower Plus that I called to interview volunteered something that it never dawned on me to ask. And what every one of them volunteered was, you do know that I had a suicide plan in place. So basically, these are people that are normal, because all of them had been in and out of the psych ward involuntarily, but they now were no longer going in and out of the psych ward. So they're either working full-time or they're going to school full-time, and they're normal. Like, the thing that I learned through the trial is if Empower Plus works, it works. It's like a light switch goes off. You're on now. You're not, you're normal. So for them, they'd gotten their lives back. But everyone volunteered. And this is while they're normal, that they put together a suicide plan, how they were going to take their life if they were to get close to running out, because they said, I won't go back. I'd rather kill myself than go back to that. And I still to this day can't understand how much these people were suffering so that they would take their life before they got there. And we know, and we'll talk about it, that a number of people got there and took their lives. Yes. So when you're saying, your children, I mean, you had thousands of Canadians that relied on this product for their very lives.
Absolutely.
And Health Canada's telling you to stop. Why are they telling you to stop?
Well, I remember David and I drove out to Burnaby, BC, and we visited with the Western Regional Director.
Dennis Shelley.
Yes, Dennis Shelley. And he said, it's not that the product isn't a good product, but you cannot use it for what you're using it for. And I remember saying to him, well, Dennis, is it a dangerous product? No. We've looked at the safety on this thing, and there's not a question of safety. Well, I said, is it efficacious? Well, it's a very good vitamin mineral mixture, but you can't make the claim. You can't even suggest that it could be used to assist people with mental conditions.
Censorship.
That's all it is. Censorship over lives. It wasn't the lives that counted to them. It was the bottom dollar, the bottom line.
Well, let's talk about, because what people don't understand, and it's funny, like I started in this field acting as counsel. I was Health Canada's lawyer against a herbalist named Jim Strauss in 1994. And then I started my own firm and I ended up acting for him. And I came to understand that this is a life and death issue. So I've spent now over 30 years running interference when Health Canada is attacking companies like Truehope and attacking practitioners. And most of it's out of court. But almost all of it is over sharing truthful health information. They don't care that you could cure cancer or cure anything else. You just can't tell anyone.
Yeah.
You can't, and if you can't tell anyone, then no one can know, and it's problem solved. And they try to put company, and I've seen them destroy companies. Like it's actually seldom that when, a company like Truehope is attacked, that they survive. Yes. So you guys survive. So they're telling you, they actually are telling you to stop selling the product, not just making claims about it, not just shut up, but they actually want you to stop selling. Like, that's the cease and desist. You go out of business and you go home, and basically you let thousands of people in Canada die, let alone internationally. Am I missing anything here?
Not at all. And the second question that needs to be asked is, what happened to the Charter of Human Rights, Section 2, that allows freedom of speech? You got to ask that question, because we're supposed to be living in a free dominion here where we have the right to freedom of expression and opinion. And they're trying to sequester all of this using regulatory affairs and different regulations that are saying that you could be fined, go to jail, or whatever. There's something wrong.
I'm wanting us to focus on what happened. So they tell you to cease and desist, and you can't. But you guys get psychiatrists and doctors and people to write letters to Health Canada before they really get out of hand, explaining that lives are at stake here.
Yep.
Right? And those were entered as an exhibit. Like, just so everyone knows, Health Canada charges Truehope criminally in an effort to get them to stop, because horror of all horrors, back in the early 2000s, Truehope is selling without a license. Can you believe it? Well, the whole natural health product industry, nobody had a license. Like, so out of about over 80,000 products, the only people charged with selling without a license is Truehope. So horror of horrors, you guys are doing what everyone else is doing because there was no licensing system. They're charging you criminally, and entered as an exhibit. Like, I don't even remember how many, like, letters and phone calls and all of this. Like, Health Canada and the Minister of Health are being flooded by psychiatrists saying, my patient is going to die if you take this product away. I've tried all your approved drugs on the patient. They don't work. Doctors are writing and saying the same things. And people are writing saying, I've taken all your approved drugs. I'm only alive. I'm normal. Like, I'm working. Did any of that have an effect on Health Canada? Like, they're getting flooded with communications because people know they're now begging for their lives because they know Health Canada wants you guys to take the product away. Did that have any effect on Health Canada?
No, none. Truth didn't work. Didn't matter. Didn't matter if it was helping or if it was a good product. That's not what it's about. You're getting in the way of the pharmaceutical bottom line. And
just so everyone knows, like, this is public record. You can get the transcripts of these court proceedings. You can verify that these letters are a court exhibit. Like, this is public record. Just hundreds of doctors and psychiatrists and people pleading for lives that depend on this product. Like, this is what's so compelling about your case, Tony, is there's a public record of all of this, including a court decision. But Health Canada ignores that and they raid you guys. Tell us about that.
Well, one morning I woke up to a phone call, and there was staff members, and they said, get into the office right now. There's a raid going on. A raid? And so I drove out there. Our offices were at that time located in Raymond, Alberta, and it's about a 20-minute drive. So I got there, and I remember walking in the door, and the commander in charge of the RCMP for that raid is in there. There was, I believe, probably 8 or 9 RCMP, SWAT, whatever. And we've got about 8 Health Canada agents, and they're tearing the place apart. This is a raid. We're removing all this information. And I got to know I'll never forget the commanding officer. He said, I want to see some of this illegal drug. I said, well, first off, it's not an illegal drug. It's vitamins, minerals, and amino acids. Well, I need to see a bottle. I said, well, we're not selling it here. People order through our system, and it's shipped from the, what? Are you telling me this is being imported? Yeah, absolutely. I'm telling you that. Well, I want to see a bottle. And I said, okay, there's a lady here that takes it that used to suffer with bipolar. I'll go ask her for her bottle. Shirley, do you have your bottle here? Can the officer look at it? And it was amazing because he took this bottle. He said, I want to see this. Let's see. Vitamin A, vitamin B1, B2, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, zinc. He said, hey, this stuff looks just like that product, those gummies that my wife gives to my children every day with their breakfast. I says, yeah, it's like that. It's vitamins, minerals, amino acids. He looks like he's got shock and horror on his face. And he says, what? I need to know what we're doing here. And I said, so do I.
But they seize your computers and basically disrupt your operations.
They did. And then they phoned the clients to warn them off about the danger of this product.
And then they start.
Yep.
Then they start seizing shipments at the border.
Yep.
And what happens?
They're creating a major hazard. People are going suicidal. Clients are smuggling product into Canada. They're going across the U.S. border and picking it up. The natives at the Kanasawaki, the Mohawks, started bringing product into Canada. Yeah, it was just a terrible state of terror for those innocent people that needed this product.
Yeah, so just so people understand, so you guys had your call center and you would manage people because they needed advice. There were protocols in place, but the product was made in the U.S. and it would be shipped into Canada. So Health Canada is stopping it at the border, a product that people are telling Health Canada they rely on for their very lives. And basically people died, didn't they?
Exactly. In fact, maybe you could, because you interviewed him at trial, Ron Lajeunesse. Hey?
Yeah, no, I'll tell the story. And just so everyone knows, there's a court transcript. So he testified under oath. Ron Lajeunesse was actually a heavy hitter in the mental health field. If I recall correctly, he was an assistant deputy minister in the government of Alberta, and he basically changed all of Alberta's mental health programs.
Yep.
And, you know, he wrote a book on the Ponoka Asylum, very critical about how people were treated. And he was extremely involved and an expert in the treatment of mental health. And he became president of the Alberta branch of the Canadian Mental Health Association. And they looked into Empower Plus and determined that many of their members, their lives depended on it. And every time one of their members committed suicide because they lost access to the product, and he testified in court about this, he would hold a press conference about the death in an effort to convince Minister of Health, who then was Anne McClellan, to basically relent and allow access to the product as a matter of life and death. So this is what he testified in court, that he would hold a press conference every time there was a suicide. And my understanding, Tony, is basically about 300 people dropped off of your lists.
They did. They disappeared.
They disappeared.
Never to return. So we don't know how many people suicided. That was a terrible, terrible day. It was an attack on the weakest of our society. People that need more help than any other person. And they attacked them. It was terrible.
What was it like at Truehope? Because you guys must have been getting calls from the participants. So what was that like?
Well, there was a lot of fear. A lot of people crying on the phone. They were fearful of their husband dying, their wife, their children that needed the product. What can we do? And we did the best that we could. But that carried on for quite a while. They had a stranglehold on Canada and upon the rights of the innocent, the weakest of the weakest.
No, can I tell the 1-800 crisis line note stories? So
Please.
You guys were doing everything you could, and you didn't even have to encourage people. Their lives depended on it. So, participants and family members and doctors were calling Health Canada, calling the health minister, Anne McClelland's office. And in a criminal trial, they have to disclose things like their emails. And so we learned through the criminal disclosure that they weren't concerned about people. They're actually complaining, we're getting so many calls that we can't function. So they created what was called a 1-800 crisis line. So if you phoned the health minister's office, or you phoned Health Canada, as soon as you said Truehope or Empower Plus, they would hit a button without asking for your consent, and you would be transferred to this 1-800 crisis line that was staffed with, as they explained, mental health experts. And publicly, they made this sound good. It's like, well, we know there are people concerned, so we've got mental health experts, and you can call. Like, the public messaging was wonderful. But the problem for Health Canada in the criminal trial was, well, they were mental health professionals, and mental health professionals make notes when you phone them. So we knew from this disclosure that there were all these notes that were taken by these mental health counselors at this 1-800 crisis line. And so I'm asking the Crown, well, give me these notes. And I don't get them. We have pretrial conferences. I'm asking, can I get these notes? Can I get these notes? And I'm not getting them.
Yeah.
So, and Tony knows, he was there at the trial. So first day of trial, I tell the judge in court, I don't have these 1-800 crisis line notes yet. And the Crown, they're coming. And just so I'm going to say publicly, the Crown on this file, I thought he acted ethically. He was just, that it was his job. He played fairly. He didn't play, like, I have total respect for the Crown on this file. And I don't say that on many, on every trial. And Tony knows that. Yeah. So when the Crown's saying they're coming, the Crown is just relating what the Crown is being told. This is no responsibility for the Crown Counsel in Calgary for things that are happening in Ottawa. So second day of trial, I say, bring up, I don't have these yet. Well, they're coming. And Tony, I don't remember if it was the third or fourth day, but it was one of those days. I say, well, I don't have these 1-800 crisis line notes. And the Crown says, well, they're undiscoverable, which I think was a made up, I didn't know that was a word, undiscoverable. And the explanation was, and again, this is just what the Crown lawyer would be being told. The explanation given was, well, they were in some assistant deputy minister's office. Why they would be in an assistant deputy minister's office, I don't know. It already doesn't ring true. But anyway, they were in some assistant deputy minister's office, and that person changed ministries, and they've gone missing in the move. Like, nobody knows where they are, so they're undiscoverable. So you're not going to get them defense. Well, the judge goes ballistic.
He did.
And the judge is angry. And the judge makes it clear, if I don't get them well before the end of the trial, that the judge will entertain, having the case dismissed. Well, we learn. And I don't know, but what a coincidence, Tony. So they've been looking for them for months. We've been asking for them for months. We've been asking for them during the trial. But the day we're told they're undiscoverable, and the day the judge goes ballistic, saying, I may throw this out if they're not discovered soon, they're discovered that day. Like, we find out before the end of the court day that the undiscoverable documents, well, they've been discovered. And as we speak, they're being faxed from Ottawa to Edmonton. This is 2006. Like, we didn't have, I don't think we even had email yet. So these undiscoverable documents are being faxed from Ottawa to Edmonton, and I should have them to my hotel room before midnight. And, late in the night, I did get them and set them aside. I thought I would read them the next morning. And they're a court exhibit. This is public record. I think it's like, I don't know, is it like between 800 and 900 pages? I forget now. Like, it's just this crazy volume.
It's huge.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge.
It's crazy volume. And I can tell you, I started reading them during breakfast, and I had to set them down because I started weeping.
Yeah.
Because it's 800 pages of vulnerable Canadians begging for their lives. There's no other way to describe it. It's 800 pages of vulnerable Canadians, some of whom we can comfortably say are no longer with us, begging for their lives. And Tony, I don't know how anyone, with 2 heart cells cannot act on that, but Health Canada didn't act on that. And I know why they didn't want us to get it. Because it was just so damning. Now, we learned, though, we know from their actions, Health Canada didn't relent. Like, finally, the Minister of Health relented and allowed access to this product, but Health Canada didn't relent. Do you want to share with the audience what happened in court with the Inspector Miles Brousseau when he was being cross-examined about, like, you guys have all this information that people are being hurt, and yet you're proceeding anyway. Do you want to share what your experience of that was?
I'm going to defer to you because it'll be more accurate, because you were actually doing the interview. And I'll tell you what, when I heard what he said, it blew me apart. But if you're okay, I'd like you to load that.
And I remember the whole courtroom just kind of, it was almost like time stopped.
Yeah.
And nobody knew what to do with what they just heard. So, and again, you have to go and read the transcripts. Like, this is a long time ago. But, basically there's an inspector on the stand, Miles Brousseau, who, had been taking actions that in our opinion was causing harm and literally being reckless towards people's lives. And he wasn't the top guy. He was a soldier following orders, but he was following orders. And I'm basically pointing out things like these 1-800 crisis line notes and all these letters and calls beforehand, and saying, like, if you have information showing that your action is actually, I think causing death, right? Like taking lives. Did I go that far?
You did.
Yeah. And it's your orders to follow them. Like, would you carry on anyway? And what does he say, Tony?
Yes, because we had a directive to do so.
Yes, it was basically, they knew that they were causing harm. You look at the court exhibits, it's unmistakable. And he's saying, yeah, I'm going to follow orders, even if I have evidence that it's hurting people. And you see, this is the problem. It's kind of like during the Second World War when they would round, Jewish people up into a church and set it on fire. Like, people follow orders. There's something in our makeup. People follow orders. This fellow isn't unusual. He's the norm, but it's part of the problem. And when we allow a legal structure in place that gives people the authority to decide that they can take a product away that people rely on for their health. The problem is our laws, that we're not free to decide to take things that we actually rely on for our lives. That's the problem. And there was another interesting part of the trial. It was my education, Tony. We got Inspector Sheila Wheelock, I think it was, on the stand. And, as a lawyer, you want to box people in. I get to cross-examine her. I get to ask yes/no questions. And so I've got a list of yes/no questions, kind of box her in. I know I'm going to get yeses. But then I'll kind of have her cornered into this box, and then, the delivery question. But one of my surely I'm going to get a yes questions, because I didn't know yet. I didn't understand yet. This was still early on in my, Health Canada career. Yeah. And one of my questions was something like, well, as a Health Canada inspector, you're there to protect our health. And I thought I was going to get a yes. And she doesn't give me a yes. And, I keep my poker face. I don't let the judge or anyone else know that, just wait a second, that's not what I was expecting. And I keep circling around. I've got to get a yes. Sure. As a Health Canada inspector, she's there to protect our health. That's what I believe, erroneously. And she corrects me finally, Tony. Remember, she shares with us, no, Health Canada's not there to protect our health. We're there to enforce the law, the act and the regulations. And now I know this is true. Health Canada's there to enforce the law. They're there to enforce the food and drug regulations. It's so clear now. Yep. And in the law, they're under no obligation to protect health. Like, it might surprise people. Read the Food and Drug Act. You tell me where they're supposed to get good health outcomes. Why do you think we wrote that into the Charter of Health Freedom? So that trial just absolutely, it was like, I don't know. We laughed, we wept. It was crazy. But what did the judge do at the end of the day? So Canada's trying to shut you down by having you guys convicted of a whole bunch of just regulatory charges that really I can say are meaningless. And if anyone wants to talk to me about that, like, the whole industry was unregulated. Why single out your product out of 80,000 products?
Well, it was interesting. I mean, at the very end, the very outset of this whole thing, he ruled in our favor. And he said that had we followed Health Canada's orders to shut down, that we may very well have ended up in court with a greater thing against us, which would involve people being injured, people losing their lives, that we would be held accountable for following their orders. It was shocking. The whole thing was shocking.
Yeah, so just so everyone understands, there's a defense of necessity in the law. And what the defense of necessity, and it is hard to get a court to acquit you on the defense of necessity. Like, you will search far and wide to find a case. And in fact, this is now probably the leading case in Canada. But basically, the defense of necessity is the court says, I don't care that some law may have been broken. It was legally necessary for you to defy the law to prevent greater harm. If you had followed the law, there would have been greater harm. And my recollection, I know it's not in the written decision, but my recollection is when he delivered oral judgment, he said there would have been more deaths.
Yes.
If you had listened to Health Canada, and you can't read the evidence in that case and not personally come to the same conclusion, that if Truehope would have listened to Health Canada and stopped selling, there would have been a large number of deaths. And so basically the court was saying it was legally necessary for you to prevent harm by doing what you did. And so basically, Health Canada couldn't use that case as a weapon against you. Now, I want you, we've actually had a long discussion already, but I'm not finished. I want to show you a little bit of a video, but I want you to explain. Truehope's never paid for research, but I think there's like now 30 published peer-reviewed journal publications, all funded by government. Can you just talk about that and the types of things that the research says? Because I want the Canadian public to understand why why Truehope can't share that with you.
Well, you're actually right, but it's even further than that. Here I have, this isn't our most latest summary. We have a summary of the abstracts of the medical journal publications. This one shows 36 publications, but it's actually 37 now. There was recently another one. So there are 37 medical journal publications on 16 different mental disorders. I don't like that terminology because those are dungeon terms. It gives the thinking the incurable. It's not incurable. These are nutrient deficiency-based disorders. But here you have the publications in some of the most renowned journals like the Clinical Journal of Psychiatry, There's double-blind studies, RTCs, randomized controlled trials. You've got absolute evidence on 16 different disorders from 16 different universities. And I believe there was 59 researchers involved. We didn't pay 5 cents for it. I call that a godsend. That's amazing. This research is not bought and paid for. In fact, if we were to try and provide funding to the universities involved, they would reject it. Not that we did.
What countries have done research?
Say that again?
What countries have done research?
You've got a major hold in New Zealand, the university in Christchurch, University of Canterbury. There's English universities that have done this. There's a Danish, numerous universities in the U.S., Oregon State, Ohio State, Dr. Eugene Arnold, very famous. Dr. Bonnie Kaplan heading a lot of the research. No payola, no money exchanged hands. It was out of the love that they had to find an answer. You know, these research scientists do this just like doctors do. They go into the field hoping they can make a change. And they have. It's profound, the research. There's so much hope and wonder in this thing. This is available, by the way, if you go to truehope.com, you can download the new one that shows 37 studies and have a look at all the abstracts.
Which is not a Canadian website, because you can't put that on your Canadian website.
It's illegal. It's a Charter 2 violation again. The rights to
I want the Canadian audience to understand. So yes. This is research done by universities with government money, where they've just decided this is in the public interest for us to do, and then published into peer-reviewed journals. And you cannot in Canada share that information, so Canadians can't learn about this research, because who else is going to share it other than, you know, Truehope, or because practitioners can't share it with the public either. Practitioners that know, whether you're a psychiatrist or whatever, you can't share that. A doctor or psychiatrist can't share government-funded, peer-reviewed research, and they can't share their success stories because Health Canada will go after you. You cannot share truthful health information. All that you can share is, we have almost 100% censorship. All Truehope can say is whatever their approved label claim is, which is something like supports mental health and well-being. I think it's been tweaked, but it's something like that.
Yeah. Yes, it is. You're right.
Right.
And,
so
isn't that pathetic?
Well, it's just how, like, what I think is like, let's say I had a child that was, you know, it hit puberty and was now, you know, suffering by bipolar, and we've got the family history, and I know it's going to be a train wreck, and the psychiatrist is telling me there's no hope, like much like you were told at the University of Calgary, and I'm in a health food store, and I'm standing beside an aisle where, you know, there's Empower Plus, and nobody can share with me, like, there's no downside for my child trying it, but nobody can share with me that this actually might be the product that saves my child's life. Like, they can't be told. I can't be told. That's what bothers me. Like, that we can't, no one can share health information. When I think the law is that you have to share all health information. But Tony, I want to just play a little bit of a video, and this is about the ladies with red umbrellas. This is back when people were begging for their lives, when Health Canada was restricting access. And it's kind of a way for us to bring it back. So, like, this is in real time. This is back in likely 04 or 05, when people were, you know, begging for their lives. Tell us how this group came together and kind of what's going on here. Like, I know this is going to shock people.
Well, my daughter Autumn, of course, was very concerned. She's now been healthy for a number of years by that time. She's gained her life back, and she's involved in the movement of assisting people with mental health conditions. And of course, the big threat came, the embargo at the border where they shut the product off. People are having to smuggle. It's just a big mess. So she had this impression, this inspiration that came to her, where she gathered a number of female participants. We don't call them patients because we're non-medical. They're participating in this new program. And she gathered a number of these good ladies together, and they all went to Parliament. But they didn't get any traction. Jean Chrétien was the prime minister, blew them off. And they had this impression, go to the store and get red umbrellas. And they did. And so they stood outside of Parliament, and they were given certain allowances where they didn't throw them off the property. Many MPs grew to love these women. They were there for a good number of days with these beautiful red umbrellas. And they became known as the red umbrellas, and they had these red umbrella pins that they would give out. And many of the MPs, the members of Parliament, were actually sporting these pins on their lapels. And it really helped. It did. It was an amazing idea, an amazing piece of inspiration that sent this all across Canada. And
so I'm going to play this, and it's going to bring us back to what Tony was talking about. You know, people trying to communicate with To Health Canada that they needed the product. So this is an actual press conference in the press gallery in Centre Block on Parliament Hill. So, you know, these are just real people, you know, either they depended on the product themselves or their mother fighting for the child. So here we go.
Yes, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today to stand with a courageous group of women who've come to Ottawa hoping someone will listen to them. The issue is freedom of choice in natural health products. They've been taking a simple vitamin and mineral supplement that is now being withheld from them. I'd just like to give a brief background on the situation. Over the last 40 years, there's been an explosion of scientific information about the importance of vitamins and minerals in building a healthy body. Now, faced with increasing health claims about the benefits of natural health products, in 1997, Minister Alan Rock moved to bring natural health products under a drug-style directorate. Over 1 million Canadians responded, saying, hey, hands off our natural health products. They're low-risk products. The Health Committee was commissioned to look into this and to hear from Canadians. After consultations, they published a report with some 53 recommendations. And then along came a transition team for an Office of Natural Health Products, and they recommended changes to the Antiquated Food and Drugs Act. Now, I have a private member's bill right now before the House, Bill C-420, that addresses the concerns about health claims for natural health products, and basically would move natural health products under a food directorate rather than a drug-style adversarial directorate. Now, the product that these ladies have been taking has been researched at the University of Calgary. There was nearly $500,000 fund, Alberta funded from the Alberta Science and Research Council, funded research underway, which unfortunately was stopped by Health Canada. The research results have already been published in several peer-reviewed journals, and discussed at psychiatric and psychological gatherings across the country and even around the world. Now, these ladies have come from across the country because they're concerned about their future and their well-being. They feel threatened, and their families, by an obstruction from Health Canada that's now preventing their natural health product from being available in Canada. So the question really needs to be asked is, why is Health Canada imposing such draconian measures on enforcing an antiquated clause in the Food and Drugs Act, one that is under discussion and under review at the present time? And is it justified in putting these people at risk? They're here to tell their stories. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm sorry, I'm sorry, Autumn Stringham from Alberta, all the way from Alberta. Autumn?
Thank you. I am from Alberta, and I apologize. I feel like coming out into Ottawa has been a real eye-opener for me. And I have gained a new respect for this country. I love this country and what it stands for democracy and for freedom, and I'm so grateful for that. On Friday afternoon, I found out that Health Canada had put an advisory on their website about the vitamin supplement that I'm taking. And they said that it's a dangerous drug and that they recommend that Canadians don't consume it. And I was really concerned about that because I'm 6 months pregnant. And I have been eating this supplement for a lot of years. And out of genuine concern and wondering why this is dangerous, I put in a phone call to Health Canada, where I was immediately flipped over to a mental health crisis line, where they have a script that says that you are mentally ill, you need to be under the care of your physician. Please go to the hospital. If you run out of your supplement, you will not have this dangerous drug anymore. We're looking out for your best interest. I was upset by this, and I told this nurse that I had been well for many years. And I asked her why it was dangerous, and she said it was information that she could not give me. So I said that I would like to make a complaint about this because I couldn't get any help. And when they put me through to another line, it was the complaint line that said, Health Canada is a regulatory board for this. We have the highest standards. We're protecting the Canadian people. We're looking out for your best interest. You can leave a message, but it won't be answered. All of us have made calls to that line out of concern. A number of weeks ago, hundreds of shipments of this vitamin and mineral product were seized at the border and turned back. And there are about 3,000 people in this country that use this supplement, many of them for the same reasons that we do, and they're all really scared, really nervous about it, really terrified, because it seems like a rather rash decision, and then with no explanation. And when we call, we're told that we're mentally ill and we should go back to the hospital. I was offended by that, and I want you to understand why. Because I have been well for 7.5 years. I haven't seen a psychiatrist for 7.5 years. But I was very, very, very sick before that. My family has an incredible history of mental illness. I lost my grandfather to suicide when I was 5, and I lost my mother to suicide when I was 21. I see an inheritance of mental illness in all of my mother's children in one degree or another. And I inherited her illness full force. I spent years through my early teen years and into my 20s as an extremely ill woman. And I spent my time in the psychiatric units. In a 3-year period, I tried 13 drugs, many of them in various combinations. I developed an autoimmune disease. I developed liver damage as a result of these drugs, and they didn't work for me. I'm not anti-medication, but my mother died taking medication. We've never been anti-doctor. I loved my doctor. My psychiatrist wanted to help me, but he didn't have the tools that it took to help me. My family suffered for 2 years after the death of my mother. She left 9 children that she had given birth to and 1 adopted daughter. And several of them were still home. Her youngest children were only 6 and 7 at the time when she took her life. And so the cost to our family in suicide was phenomenal. And there is a cost that every Canadian pays to suicide. There are many, many suicides in this country daily. So this is an issue of life for me. Sorry. 2 years after my mother's suicide, my dad was just so desperate. You see, my brother, who had been diagnosed with bipolar as well, and as a young male with bipolar, he was extremely violent and agitated, and the whole family felt that they were physically at risk. People in the community felt like they were at risk. He was stocking weapons, and it was very, very scary to be around at that time. And my dad, out of desperation, was doing his work as a property manager. He was in a church hallway talking to a man about carpets and toilets and regular things to do with the job that he had. And he broke down and expressed his concern about his family. He told about the suicide. He told about his children and his fear for all of his children. And this gentleman, who was a volunteer for this church, said, "I've been in the agriculture feed business for 20 years, and your boy sounds like a pig with ear and tail biting syndrome." And he explained how farmers for years and years and years have used trace minerals to get their pigs not to be agitated. And as a result, they went down to the store out of sheer desperation. The medication wasn't working for him or I. I was in the psych ward at that time. They went down to the store. They purchased all of the different combinations for, in human grade consumable form, but they bought all the ingredients that they would have put in this pig feed, and they started feeding it to my son, or to my brother. And as a result, he was off of his medication within a few weeks. And I did another stay on a suicide watch, and when I got out of the hospital, my father offered to take me into his care. So my husband drove me down, and within a week I had discontinued 3 of the 5 of the medications I was on. It took me 2 months to get off of the rest, and I've been stable ever since. This is my whole life, and I need the Canadian people to protect it, because we cannot get answers from the government officials who have been elected to protect our health. As a result of our story, many people in Southern Alberta started trying the same thing and having the same success, and as they documented their success, the University of Calgary picked it up and decided to do some research. And the research moved forward. They went through every appropriate method for getting permission to do this research, and after it had been published in the Clinical Journal of Psychiatry as having some effect with mental illness, a phenomenal effect with mental illness, Health Canada decided that these vitamins were drugs and shut down the study. And so they tell us it's dangerous because it hasn't been studied, but they won't allow it to be studied because vitamins are now drugs when they work for people. I'm just appealing. I came here to see the Prime Minister. I can't get through on the phone to Anne McClellan. We've been stonewalled at every turn. There are 3,000 of us that are really, really afraid. So on Friday when I called these women, I had never seen them before or met them, but I had heard their stories too through our Truehope support, and read letters from them and heard of them. When we gathered together, we decided that we needed to be rational, that we needed to show that this is the new face of mental illness in Canada, that there is hope. All of these women have similar stories to mine, and they would love to have the opportunity to share their stories and to proclaim themselves as mentally well. We don't need to be brushed off by Health Canada. We don't need to be sent through to mental health support lines and told that we are mentally ill and need to go back to the hospital. If we were going to think ourselves well, if this was a placebo, we would have done it years ago, the first time a doctor gave us a medication, because all of us want to live, all of us want to be well. And so I appeal to Health Canada to hear our stories and to give us some credit, and I appeal to the Prime Minister to act on our behalf. We've met so many wonderful MPs. We are the ladies with the red umbrellas that are standing outside near the Peace Tower, asking for help quietly and patiently as we wait for our government to notice us. And many of the MPs have come forward. We've talked to MPs from every party, and they have been absolutely wonderful, but none of them have the ability to immediately intervene in this. And so we're appealing to the Prime Minister, and we're appealing to Anne McClellan to see that we are well and that we are rational and that we are desperate Canadian women who are seeking to protect ourselves and our families and essentially our children. And I thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Sabina Colson. I live in Pembroke, Ontario. From the time that I was a toddler, I've lived in a world of bipolar and obsessive-compulsive delusions. Was on medication for about 16 years for the last 6 or 7 years, my medical costs averaged between $1,200 and $1,800 a month. That was not including the cost of the many times I had to be hospitalized, sometimes for months on end. I feel that in watching the news, I always was under the impression that healthcare in Canada is in trouble because of the tremendous cost involved. And I don't understand why now that I'm able to function, I'm able to work, I'm now paying taxes, I'm not a burden on the system anymore. I feel that this right is being taken away from me. It's not only going to reduce me back to not having any quality of life, but it's also going to take the dignity away from me to be able to be a productive member of society, to not be a burden on the system. And I just ask that you please let me keep my quality of life. Let me continue as a productive member of society. Thank you.
Anybody else would like to speak right now? Lou? Okay, Suzanne? Just a few words.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Acton-Gervais, and I as well would like to mirror what Autumn was saying. We've met some fantastic MPs and ministers, and we really appreciate you lending us your ears and giving us your time. We do realize how busy you are, and we are here because we are here to protect our rights and freedom. We're here, all these women, peacefully to ask that our access to this product to be imported into Canada is not restricted. As well, I'm here to put a question forth. This is a possible cure. This is science. This is a made in Canada possible cure. This illness knows no boundaries. Why can't Canada lead the way? Why can't Canada do what is morally right? Why can't Canada support the research at the University of Calgary? We ask you, the Canadian public, the MPs, to please do what is morally right. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Patricia Shantz.
I'm from Calgary, Alberta. I came out here searching for answers, coming to my government, the people who protect me, who are essentially in charge of my life, looking for answers. We have gotten so many different answers. We have been getting conflicting reports. We've been told that as participants, we can drive down to the United States, purchase a 3-month supply of our supplements, and drive them across the border. Well, that seems true at some border crossings, not true at other border crossings. At some border crossings, people are being told that they need a letter from Anne McClellan from Health Canada to be able to bring their supplements back. When we ask Health Canada about the letter, there is no letter. We're very confused women. We are upset. We're fighting for our lives here. And when you go to ask your government what's going on, what they're doing, and you get 10 answers, that's really scary. That's really scary. I love this country and I'm proud of my government. But right now, I'm really scared at what they're doing. It seems like everyone's getting a different answer, not just us. MPs are confused. No one knows what's going on. And we just beg of you, Canada, to help us get these answers. We need answers from Health Canada, and we need one answer, not 10 different answers to the same question. Thank you.
I'll speak, sure.
Hi, my name is Christine. I've come to Ottawa from Red Deer, Alberta. I'm here with these wonderful women fighting for my right to take a natural supplement. The supplement consists of everything that's available on health food stores' shelves today. Itself is not available in the health food store, but it's made such a difference for me. Without it, I fear for my life. That's not a threat, it's a fear. I know that for a decade before this supplement, I made over a dozen suicide attempts, and I really am lucky to be standing before you today. The supplement has kept me well for 2 years. I have not been hospitalized. Before that, I was on a revolving door, in and out, in and out, in and out. I was a tremendous tax to the government and to the people of Canada. And I don't understand why something that is working for me is being taken away, and why we're being told to go back to the hospital when we're well.
So please stand up and do what's right and fight for Canada and for our rights and our freedoms. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, MP Reid Alley would just like to say a word.
In the last Parliament, I was the Vice Chair of the Health Committee when we did the review of natural health products in this country. And I think we as a committee came forward with some pretty unanimous recommendations about the use of supplements and how they should be viewed by Health Canada and the Canadian public. And one of our recommendations, of course, was that a separate food directorate be set up that would include these supplements and that would not be placed under drugs. Unfortunately, the government has ignored that particular recommendation, and so these ladies come to Ottawa today as a result of inaction of Health Canada and the health minister at that time having this problem with this food supplement. And I think that it clearly shows that there's a problem with the way things are handled in this country concerning natural health products. And certainly my colleague James Lunny and myself are going to continue our efforts to try to see that this problem is taken care of so that people like this, Canadians who depend upon supplements for their very life, are not denied that which is really their right.
So, thank you. We're available for questions.
I just wanted to ask, you took it several years up until now. How were you receiving it? Was it through the mail or?
Originally, it was just off of the grocery store shelves, where it was just a combination based on this swine feed discovery. So it was just whatever, I could just go down and pick up the different ingredients. Some of it was brought in from the United States in liquid form, but it was inconsistent. And so, and it was hard to develop a placebo with so many different tablets and things like that. So when the university decided that they wanted to do a double-blind placebo-controlled study in order to prove what thousands of Canadians already knew, they developed it into an all-in-one supplement, and that was produced in the States, it's sold in the United States, and it's imported for personal use into Canada. So I've been using this program for 7.5 years. I've also had 2 healthy babies during those years, and I'm pregnant with my 3rd, so I trust that it isn't dangerous. And
from the States?
We can order it, but it's pretty tough to get it across the border. Sometimes it comes in. Patricia had a friend who drove from Calgary yesterday to pick up her product. When she got into the United States, she picked it up. She called back to the Alberta border to make sure that she wouldn't be hassled coming back through, because some of the women have been reduced to tears and told that it's an illegal drug, you're not allowed to have it, and you have to beg and make a scene to get it. And so they said, don't even try. So this woman drove back up through BC, and the BC border had no trouble. She declared it. They had no trouble getting it in. It's just mass confusion. We just need an answer.
I went on the Health Canada site. This page, you said they just put that there the other day.
That was on Friday, yeah.
Friday. It does say there are risks associated. It doesn't say what, or a risk. Have they ever told you what that is?
No, they haven't. And we've heard from different MPs that there have been different risks associated with it. They haven't told us. Apparently, we can't answer. We wouldn't understand the answer if we got it. We just get the mental health crisis line. But what I do know is any of us could tell you the risks associated with our previous treatment. If I were to show you the side effects of my drugs that I took on a scroll, it would hit the floor and keep on rolling. There's no death as a result of vitamins and minerals, and most of these ingredients have been available for at least 40 years on the store shelves in Canada.
If they want to call it a drug, would you be amenable to having them go through the process of the testing? I know it can be lengthy to do that, but
as long as the access isn't restricted, that's an issue. But I really believe firmly that vitamins and minerals are not drugs. Drugs are synthetic things that are put together that have a lot of side effects and that can be dangerous. People die from medication complications often. They don't die from vitamins and minerals.
Saying it's a drug because it makes a claim to do something, is that?
Well, it wasn't a drug for the first years. And if the fact that a vitamin and mineral actually makes a difference, makes it a drug, I'd like to know where the logic is in that. The ingredients didn't change, and it's vitamins and minerals.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes, please.
Just on the point of drugs, if vitamins and minerals have always been traditionally in this country, they've always been public domain. They're not drugs, but of course, in the last 40 years, there's been an explosion of information about how important these things are in building healthy bodies. So the question is, why should we put a low-risk product through a millions of dollars of testing? Who's going to pay the cost? It's going to drive the cost up to consumer if we do that. Now, let's do the research. That's great if they want to do it. But who's going to pay the cost of that for something that is really low risk? And then when will it become available, if ever? And that's one of the questions for something that is low risk. The other thing is that as far as safety goes, the Alberta Science and Research Council that approved the funding for a $500,000 study, they did a risk assessment of the components of the product, as did the University of Calgary. It had to go through peer review and ethics committee before the research was conducted, and there's no one has ever demonstrated any risks associated with this particular product. As with most vitamin and mineral products, the adverse reaction rate is so low, it basically is not even on the scale. So it's lower than Tylenol or aspirin, or peanuts for that matter.
Problem with it, I'm assuming here, is that because it's used to treat something serious like depression as opposed to other vitamin supplements out there that are just supposed to generally make you healthier. Is that...
We don't understand really what...
And that bothers me, because if that's true, then eating an orange for the vitamin C for scurvy, does that mean oranges are drugs? Does that mean if we have an orange tree in our backyard, we're a drug pusher? You have to look, we're not just looking at one supplement here. Yes, that's our case, but look at it across the board. If that's true, then vitamin C is a drug.
I think John's wort treats depression, right? So,
and it's not a drug, is it?
Yeah, no.
Can I make a comment? My comment too is that I can't claim to fully understand how these supplements have returned my mental well-being back to as normal as I think I can be. I also did not exactly understand how the drugs that I was given were supposed to work. Now, they did not help me, but I do understand, and I did see on black and white, the fact that I developed diabetes, that many times I was hospitalized because my sugar level was in the coma range. At one time I was hospitalized, my sugar went up to 59. It's supposed to be 7 at the highest. I also know that my liver became enlarged, and all of my liver enzyme tests came back really abnormal, and I was sent to specialists, and they told me that the medication was leading to cirrhosis of the liver. So I don't understand maybe fully how this supplement works, but I do know that my tests are now coming back normal, that I threw away my insulin under medical guidance. I do not even need a special diet. And that's virtually unheard of with diabetic patients. So can you explain to me what the danger is in me taking this supplement? The drugs were literally killing me, and they would have led to extremely serious health risk.
If I can just... It's really important to understand, too, that we're not asking people to drop their drugs and go and get vitamins and minerals. That would be extremely unsafe. This program Truehope has set up counsels people to work with their doctors, and many of us have the support of our physicians. And so we're not trying to be radical here and say, drop your drugs and go on vitamins and minerals. We're saying that there is a treatment that has been discovered in Canada that may well change the face of mental illness for many more people than the 3,000 that are using it now.
Anyone who says it didn't help them or it just didn't benefit, I mean, that's the case with most things. It doesn't work for everybody.
In the four studies that have been published, I think the average is about 80% effectiveness. That's what they're saying. It certainly doesn't work for everyone.
Much.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
your
you,
time, everyone.
Tony, I'm just honored to have you come and share your story. It's, very few people have had to experience the tragedy that you experienced, and very few people have had to, deal with Health Canada literally where it's life and death, and where there was death, and still stand through that. And so we're asking everyone that we have speak to answer the question, what's your message to Ottawa? What's your message to Ottawa? You've got all this experience. You understand things that many of us don't understand. And what would be your message to Ottawa?
Let the people go. Let the people have their rights and freedoms to manipulate their own health care within their own body, to self-mediate instead of being restrictive and following the financial platitude that has come forth. I mean, this case just brings it right clear. There's no question. If you follow this from the beginning, Shawn, to the end, it smacks of control of human life instead of letting people have their freedom. And it's actually a very sad story. It's a sad story for Canada and what happened. Where are those 300 people that disappeared out of our database? Did we lose 300 to suicide? If we did, that's terrible. That's such an attack. So let the people go. Let the people have their rights and their freedoms. We don't need to be monitored. You know what, Shawn? I'm going to be real silly here. I don't drink gasoline as part of my dietary makeup because I'm wiser than that. I know that that's a very dangerous thing to do. And every self-respecting human in Canada is wise enough to determine what's safe for them. Just read the label. Listen, seek for wisdom. We don't need this control. It's overt and it's so oppressive. And when you have Health Canada agents that sit in a courtroom and say that human life is of no value, that their regulatory framework is what we should be giving credence to, that's Auschwitz. I'm sorry, I don't want to belittle anything or be seen as a radical, but it just goes on and on and on until the people truly have their freedom and they can have their health back. We saw the same thing with the COVID show. We saw the same thing.
We're trying actually to stay away from that theme. And
I'll block my words out. If anyone's listening, ignore that statement. But it's time. Time for people to have the right and the freedom to access their health. It's that simple. That's what this story is about. Praise God that we were so blessed. I'm so grateful, Shawn, that you were our counsel. You were very inspired all the way through. And I know it was a difficulty because we all got attacked. How many times have we broken in? And we don't go needs to be asked.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it was interesting. Nobody could sit through that trial and read that evidence and not be affected emotionally. So, I mean, even just all the letters and calls documented before Health Canada restricted access. Like I couldn't get my head around psychiatrists saying, listen, my patient's going to die. And doctors saying my patient's going to die. Like, I've tried all the other, this is the only thing that works. And people saying the same thing. And it's kind of like, you get damaged when you see what happened, and then you realize actually, as the court found as fact, that people died. Because here you have this regulatory agency that was not concerned about the health of people. Like this you could see the train coming. This was all very predictable, and it, I think we were all affected, and we're probably still affected, and there's nothing we can do about it. But it certainly shows that we need to change the laws so that we do have the right to make our own decisions. I think, like I think we all agree with the government making recommendations, but where we find ourselves in a world where we can't share truthful health information,
Yeah.
it's quite something. So Tony, on behalf of the world's greatest health show, thank you so much for coming and participating and sharing with us. It's just been an absolute pleasure.
And thanks for all you're doing to get information into the hands of Canadians. It's a wonderful group of people throughout Canada. Good people here. And we need to be free. But thank you very much for what you've done.
Thanks, Tony.